My husband's sister expected me to postpone my wedding for her cruise, so I gave her a reality check instead. The first time I met Rebecca, she was reorganizing her mother's spice rack. It was Thanksgiving, about a year into my relationship with David, and I'd arrived early to help with the cooking. I walked into the kitchen to find her standing on a step stool, pulling down jars of paprika and oregano, arranging them in alphabetical order. Her mother, Margaret, stood by the sink, a dish towel in her hands, looking vaguely defeated. "Rebecca, sweetheart, I really don't think the cumin needs to go before the cinnamon," Margaret said softly. Rebecca didn't even turn around. "Mom, it's not about what you think. It's about what's functional. You'll thank me when you can actually find things." I introduced myself, extending a hand. She glanced down at it like it was something vaguely unpleasant, then gave it a brief, limp shake. "Oh, you're David's girlfriend," she said. "He's mentioned you." The way she said it made it clear that what David had mentioned hadn't been particularly complimentary. I smiled anyway, offering to help with the vegetables. She handed me a peeler and pointed to a bowl of potatoes, already turning her attention back to the spice rack. "Just try not to leave peelings all over the counter," she said. "I've already cleaned in here twice." I bit my tongue and started peeling. I was determined to make a good impression. David had warned me that his sister could be a bit intense, but I'd grown up with a strong-willed sister of my own. I knew how to navigate complicated family dynamics. I just needed to be patient, to show her that I wasn't a threat, that I was there to support her brother, not compete with her. Over the next few years, I learned the subtle art of managing Rebecca. She was the kind of person who needed to be in control of every situation, from family dinners to holiday gift exchanges. She'd send out detailed emails about what everyone should bring to Christmas, complete with spreadsheets and color-coded assignments. She'd critique my cooking, my outfit choices, even the way I arranged my hair. I'd smile, nod, and change the subject. It was exhausting, but I told myself it was worth it to keep the peace. After all, David was the love of my life, and his family came with the package. David and I got married on a perfect autumn day, the leaves blazing orange and gold around the small chapel we'd chosen. Rebecca was a bridesmaid, though she'd complained extensively about the color of the dresses. I'd selected a soft sage green that looked beautiful on everyone, but Rebecca insisted it washed out her complexion. She demanded I change it. I told her I'd buy her a shawl instead. She didn't speak to me for the rest of the rehearsal dinner. The wedding itself was lovely, despite Rebecca's passive-aggressive comments and her habit of rearranging the seating chart at the reception. David's grandmother, who was supposed to be sitting near the head table, ended up in the corner near the restrooms. I found out later that Rebecca had swapped the place cards to accommodate a friend she'd invited last minute. I was furious, but David convinced me to let it go. "It's just one day," he said. "Let her have her small victories. She's not a happy person and she never will be." I took his advice. I let things slide. I smiled through the awkward family dinners, the unsolicited advice about my career, the comments about how I wasn't quite good enough for her precious brother. I figured that once we were married, once I was officially part of the family, things would get better. I was wrong. Marriage didn't soften Rebecca. It emboldened her. Now that I was officially her sister-in-law, she seemed to feel even more entitled to dictate my life. The incident that finally broke me happened on a Tuesday. I was at home working from my home office when my phone rang. I saw Rebecca's name on the screen and felt my stomach tighten. I almost didn't answer, but I knew she'd keep calling. "Amelia," she said, her voice bright and confident, "I need you to change your anniversary dinner." I blinked, confused. "Excuse me? Your anniversary dinner," she repeated, as if I was being deliberately obtuse. "David told me you're planning a dinner at that French place on the 14th. I need you to change it." I set down my pen, a strange sense of calm washing over me. "Rebecca, our anniversary is on the 14th. That's the whole point." "I know that," she said impatiently, "but I just booked a cruise for that week. It leaves on the 12th and comes back on the 18th. I'll miss your dinner. You need to reschedule." I heard the words coming out of her mouth and felt my grip tighten on my phone. "Rebecca, we've had this date planned for 6 months. We've already made reservations and invited our closest friends. David's best friend is flying in from out of state. Then change it to the weekend before," she said, completely unperturbed. "It's not that difficult, Amelia. It's just dinner. You can have dinner anytime." It wasn't just dinner. It was our anniversary. It was the first anniversary of the day I'd become part of this family, and I'd been looking forward to it for months. We'd planned a beautiful, intimate evening with the people who actually supported us, who actually cared about our happiness. Rebecca wasn't one of them, and yet she was demanding I upend everything for her convenience. "Rebecca, I'm not changing the date," I said, my voice steady. "If you can't make it, we'll miss you. But the dinner is staying where it is." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head, the calculations of how to manipulate this situation to her advantage. "Amelia," she said, her voice dropping to something quieter, something more dangerous. "I don't think you understand the situation. This cruise is a family trip. My mother is coming, my father, my children. If you plan your dinner for that week, you're deliberately excluding the entire family." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Rebecca, I love you, but you're being unreasonable. Our anniversary is our day. We didn't choose it to spite you. We chose it because it's the day we got married. I'm not going to apologize for celebrating that. You're being selfish," she said, her voice sharp now. "You always do this. You always think everything is about you. My brother deserves someone who actually cares about his family." I felt the words hit me like a physical psychological blow. I'd spent years trying to prove that I cared, that I was worthy of being part of their family. I'd swallowed my pride, bitten my tongue, smiled through countless insults. And this was the thanks I got. "Rebecca," I said, my voice trembling just slightly, "I'm going to say this once. If you can't make it to our anniversary dinner, we will celebrate without you. But I am not changing the date. I am not rearranging my life for your convenience. This is not up for debate. Goodbye." I hung up the phone and sat there, my heart pounding in my chest. I just lit a match in a powder keg. I knew Rebecca wouldn't let this go. She'd go to David, she'd go to her parents, she'd rally the troops. She'd paint me as the villain who was tearing the family apart over a stupid dinner. I was right. Within hours, my phone was blowing up with messages from David's relatives. Margaret sent a worried text asking if everything was okay. David's father called and left a voicemail, his voice heavy with disappointment. Even David's cousin, someone I barely knew, messaged me on social media with a long, rambling message about how I should think about the bigger picture. I sat on my couch, surrounded by the silence of my own home, and felt the weight of all of it pressing down on me. I'd spent so long trying to be the good one, the accommodating one, the peacekeeper, and where had it gotten me? Nowhere. I was still the outsider, the one who didn't understand, the one who was selfish for wanting to celebrate her own marriage. David came home from work that evening, his face drawn with worry. He'd been getting calls all day. "Amelia," he said gently, sitting down next to me on the couch. "What happened?" "Rebecca is telling everyone you're trying to tear the family apart." I looked at my husband, the man I'd chosen to spend my life with, and felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Courage. "David," I said, "I'm going to tell you exactly what happened." I told David everything. I told him about the phone call, about Rebecca's demand, about the way she'd dismissed our anniversary like it was nothing more than an inconvenience. I told him about the years of small cuts, the passive-aggressive comments, the constant feeling of being judged and found wanting. I watched his face as I spoke, searching for any sign that he might take her side, that he might ask me to just give in one more time to keep the peace. He didn't. Instead, he reached over and took my hand, his fingers warm and steady against mine. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have said something years ago. I should have stood up for you." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I didn't want to put you in the middle," I admitted. "I thought if I just kept trying, she'd eventually come around." David shook his head slowly. "She's not going to come around, Amelia. She's been like this her whole life. My parents enabled her, and I let it happen because it was easier than fighting. But I'm done with that. You're my wife. You come first." He pulled out his phone and started typing. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm sending a message to the family group chat," he said. "I'm telling them that Rebecca is lying, that she demanded we change our anniversary plans, and that I'm not going to allow her to bully you anymore." I felt a rush of relief mixed with a touch of anxiety. The family group chat was sacred territory. Rebecca had created it years ago, and she used it to control the narrative of every family event. But David was right. It was time to take back control. His message was clear and direct. He explained that our anniversary dinner was planned months in advance, that Rebecca had demanded we reschedule, and that we would not be accommodating her request. He ended with a simple statement. "Rebecca, I love you, but you need to stop. Amelia is my wife, and I won't let you treat her like this anymore." The responses came flooding in. Margaret sent a sad-faced emoji and a message saying she hoped everyone could just get along. David's father called, and I heard David's side of the conversation as he firmly but politely stood his ground. And Rebecca? She went silent. For about 3 hours, there was nothing. No messages, no calls, no dramatic follow-ups. I started to relax. Maybe, just maybe, she'd realized she'd gone too far. Then my phone buzzed with a private message from Margaret. "Amelia, dear, I know you and Rebecca have had your differences, but I'm hoping you can be the bigger person here. She's been through so much lately." I stared at the message, a sinking feeling settling in my stomach. Through so much was Margaret's code for "Rebecca is throwing a tantrum, and I need you to fix it." I'd heard it 100 times before, always in reference to Rebecca's latest drama. But this time, I wasn't going to cave. "Margaret, I love you, but I'm not going to apologize for wanting to celebrate my anniversary. I've been accommodating Rebecca for years, and it's never been enough. I'm done." Margaret didn't respond. I knew she was probably hurt, but I also knew that someone had to break the cycle. For years, everyone in the family had tiptoed around Rebecca, enabling her demands, soothing her ego. It was exhausting, and I was tired of being part of it. The next few days were tense. Rebecca didn't call or text, and I didn't reach out either. David and I continued planning our anniversary dinner, finalizing the menu and confirming our guest list. We'd invited 12 people, our closest friends and David's grandparents, who had always been incredibly supportive of our relationship. We'd also invited Margaret and Robert, though I wasn't sure they'd actually show up given the tension. A week before the dinner, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. "Hello? Amelia? It's Geraldine." I recognized the voice as David's grandmother. She was in her late 80s, sharp as a tack, and had always been my favorite member of David's family. "I wanted to call and tell you that your grandfather and I will be there. We wouldn't miss it for the world." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Thank you, Geraldine. That means so much to me, and don't mention it, dear," she said briskly. "And don't you worry about Rebecca. She's been a pill since she was a little girl. It's about time someone stood up to her." Her words felt like a balm on an open wound. Geraldine had never been one to play favorites, But she also wasn't blind to Rebecca's behavior. Knowing that she supported me gave me a newfound sense of confidence. The day of the anniversary dinner arrived, and I felt a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. David and I had spent the morning together, taking a long walk through the park and reminiscing about our first year of marriage. We talked about the challenges we'd faced, the small victories, the quiet moments that had made everything worth it. It was exactly the kind of day I'd envisioned. We arrived at the restaurant early to set up some small decorations. The private dining room we'd reserved was stunning, with soft lighting and a view of the city skyline. Our friends started arriving, each one offering warm hugs and genuine smiles. David's grandparents came next, Geraldine looking elegant in a cream-colored dress, her husband leaning on his cane but beaming with pride. Then Margaret and Robert walked in. I felt my heart skip a beat, but they both embraced me warmly. "Amelia, we're so sorry about everything," Margaret whispered. "We should have supported you more. We love you, dear." I hugged her back, feeling a knot in my chest loosen. "Thank you, Margaret. That means everything." Just as we were about to sit down for dinner, the door to the private room swung open. Rebecca stood there, flanked by her husband, Peter, and their 2 children. She was dressed in a sleek black dress, her hair perfectly styled, her smile fixed in place like a mask. "Sorry we're late," she said, her voice dripping with false cheer. The traffic was terrible. I felt the air leave the room. Everyone turned to look at her, then at me. David squeezed my hand under the table. "Rebecca," he said evenly, "we didn't invite you." Rebecca's smile didn't waver, but I saw the flicker of anger in her eyes. "Oh, I know," she said, "but I couldn't let you have a family dinner without me, could I? That would be ridiculous." She pulled out a chair and sat down, gesturing for her family to do the same. The restaurant staff looked uncomfortable, clearly unsure what to do. David's grandparents exchanged a look. Margaret stared at her plate. I took a deep breath and stood up. "Rebecca, I'm going to ask you once," I said, my voice calm but carrying across the room. "Please leave. This is my anniversary dinner, and you weren't invited. This isn't a debate. You need to go." Rebecca laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Oh, come on, Amelia. Don't be dramatic. I'm family. I have every right to be here." I felt a surge of anger, hot and bright. "You don't have the right to be anywhere you're not wanted, Rebecca. You've spent years making my life difficult, and I've let it slide because I wanted to keep the peace. But I'm done. This is my life, my marriage, and my anniversary. You don't get to take that from me." Rebecca's smile finally dropped. Her eyes narrowed, and her voice turned cold. "You're making a huge mistake, Amelia. You think you can just cut me out of your life? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. David only married you because he felt sorry for you." The room went completely silent. I could feel David tensing beside me, his hand gripping mine so hard it was almost painful. But I didn't need him to speak. I had my own voice, and I was going to use it. "Rebecca, I've heard you say worse things about me in private," I said. "I know you've been telling the family that I'm not good enough for David. I know you've been spreading rumors about my career, my background, my intentions. I've let it go because I thought you'd eventually get over it, but you won't. You never will, because the problem isn't me. It's you." Rebecca stood up abruptly, knocking her chair back. "How dare you—" "I'm not finished," I said, my voice sharp as glass. "You've spent your entire life being the center of attention, and you can't handle that I'm not a threat to you. I'm not trying to take your place. I'm not trying to compete with you. I'm just trying to live my life, and you won't let me. Well, I'm done letting you. From now on, you're not welcome in my home, at my events, or in my life. I'm sure you'll find a way to spin this to make me the villain, but I don't care. I've wasted enough energy on you." I turned to Peter, who was looking at his wife with a mixture of confusion and concern. "Peter, I'm sorry you have to see this, but your wife has been treating me horribly for years, and I'm done pretending otherwise. You can stay if you want, but she needs to leave." Peter looked at Rebecca, then at me, then back at his wife. "Rebecca," he said quietly, "what are you doing? She's right. You've been terrible to her." Rebecca's face went pale. "Peter, don't you dare." "No, Rebecca," he said, standing up. "I'm tired of this. I'm tired of watching you tear people down. Amelia has been nothing but kind to you, and you've treated her like garbage. I'm sick of it. I'm going home, and I'm taking the kids." The children, who had been watching the argument with wide eyes, scrambled to their father's side. Rebecca stood alone in the middle of the room, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. "Rebecca, I'll call you tomorrow," Peter said, his voice weary. "We need to talk, but right now, I need to get the kids out of here." He led the children out of the room, leaving Rebecca standing there, completely alone. She looked around at the faces of her family, searching for someone to take her side, but no one spoke. Even Margaret, who had spent a lifetime protecting her daughter, couldn't find the words. Rebecca turned to me, her eyes blazing with fury. "You did this," she hissed. "You destroyed my family." I shook my head slowly. "No, Rebecca, you did this to yourself. I just finally stopped letting you do it to me." She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. The silence in the private dining room stretched on for what felt like an eternity. I could hear the faint clatter of dishes from the main restaurant, the distant hum of conversation, but in our little bubble, everything had stopped. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, replaying the words I'd just spoken. Had I gone too far? Had I just shattered the family beyond repair? David's hand found mine again, warm and steady. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I took a shaky breath. "I don't know. I think so," Geraldine rose from her seat, her movement slow but purposeful. She walked over to me and placed her wrinkled hand on my arm. Amelia, dear, that took courage. More courage than anyone in this family has shown in a very long time. I felt tears well up in my eyes. I didn't want it to come to this. I just wanted to celebrate our anniversary. I know, dear, Geraldine said gently, but sometimes people like Rebecca need to hear the truth. It's the only thing that gets through to them. Whether she accepts it or not is up to her. Margaret stood up next, her face pale and drawn. Amelia, I'm so sorry. I should have stopped this years ago. I didn't know how. She's always been so strong-willed, and I thought if I just kept the peace, everything would work out. I walked over to her and gave her a hug. Margaret, I don't blame you. Rebecca is an adult, and she made her own choices. You've always been kind to me, and I appreciate that more than you know. Robert cleared his throat. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm starving. And I didn't come all this way to let my daughter's bad behavior ruin a perfectly good steak. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the room. The tension began to ease, slowly but surely. Our friends who had been watching the scene with wide eyes started to relax. The restaurant staff reappeared, and soon, the first course was being served. I sat back down next to David, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and relief. The confrontation had been brutal, but it was over. Rebecca was gone, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The dinner itself was wonderful. Geraldine and her husband told stories about David's childhood, embarrassing him in a way that made everyone laugh. Margaret relaxed as the wine flowed, and even Robert cracked a few jokes. Our friends were supportive and kind, not prying into the drama, but offering their quiet presence. By the time dessert arrived, I almost felt like I could forget the scene that had unfolded earlier, but I knew I couldn't forget it. The fallout was inevitable. Rebecca wouldn't just disappear quietly. She'd regroup, and she'd come back swinging. I braced myself for what was to come. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages. Rebecca had posted a long, rambling status on social media, painting herself as the victim of a cruel and heartless sister-in-law. She'd spun the story so that she was the one who'd been excluded, the one who'd been humiliated in front of her children. The comments were a mix of sympathy and confusion, with several of her friends rallying to her defense. I showed the post to David over breakfast. He read it silently, his jaw tightening. She's lying, he said flatly. She's always been good at that. I know, I said, but people are believing her. Look at the comments. David set down his phone. Then we tell the truth. We don't have to be dramatic about it. We just tell people what actually happened. We crafted a response together, a calm, factual account of the events. We didn't attack Rebecca. We simply stated that she'd demanded we change our anniversary plans. We'd declined, and she'd shown up uninvited. We made it clear that we wished her well, but that we needed some distance for the sake of our own peace. The response was measured and mature, but it had the desired effect. Several of the people who'd commented on Rebecca's post reached out to apologize, saying they hadn't realized the full story. A few of her closest friends even sent me private messages, telling me they'd noticed her behavior toward me over the years, and were sorry they hadn't said anything. But the real surprise came from Peter. He called David a few days later, sounding exhausted and defeated. She's not taking this well, he admitted. She's been crying non-stop, blaming everyone but herself. I've tried to talk to her, but she won't listen. She's convinced she's the victim. David listened patiently. I'm sorry, Peter. I know this is hard on you and the kids. It is, Peter said, but I'm not going to let her destroy our family. I've told her she needs to get help. Therapy, counseling, something. She can't keep going like this. Rebecca refused. She insisted she didn't need help, that everyone was against her, that she was the only one who saw things clearly. Peter gave her an ultimatum. Get help, or he'd take the kids and leave. She still refused. So Peter did what he'd threatened to do. It was a shock to everyone. Peter and the kids moved into a small apartment across town, and Peter filed for separation. Rebecca was left alone in the big house she'd always insisted on, surrounded by the material possessions she'd used to define her worth. Margaret called me in tears. I don't know what to do, Amelia. She won't talk to me. She won't talk to anyone. She's just destroying herself. I listened to Margaret's pain and felt a pang of sympathy. No matter how difficult Rebecca had been, she was still Margaret's daughter. Watching her child spiral was devastating. Margaret, I said gently, Rebecca has to want to change. No one can do it for her. But you can be there for her when she's ready. Just don't enable her behavior anymore. That's what she needs most. Someone who loves her enough to say no. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. You're right, she finally said. I've been enabling her for years. I thought I was helping, but I was just making things worse. I'm going to tell her that I love her, but I can't fix this for her. She has to do it herself. Over the next few months, Rebecca's life continued to unravel. She lost her job, partly due to her erratic behavior and partly due to the rumors that had started circulating about her attitude. She was forced to sell the house and move into a smaller apartment. Her children, who were old enough to understand what was happening, began to pull away from her, preferring to spend time with Peter. It was a slow, painful decline. I watched from a distance, feeling a strange mix of pity and frustration. I didn't wish Rebecca ill. I just wanted her to leave me alone. And for the most part, she did. The silence was a relief. Then about 6 months after the anniversary dinner, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Hello? Amelia? The voice was quiet, hesitant. It took me a moment to recognize it as Rebecca's. Amelia, it's Rebecca. I need to talk to you. My heart started racing. Rebecca, I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I know. she said, her voice cracking. I know I have no right to call you. I've been terrible to you. I've been terrible to everyone. I need to apologize. I need to tell you I'm sorry. I sat down, my legs suddenly weak. Rebecca, what happened? She let out a shaky breath. I hit rock bottom. I lost everything. My marriage, my kids, my job. I was so alone, and I finally realized that I had done it to myself. I pushed everyone away. I was so consumed with being right that I forgot how to be kind. I listened, not sure what to say. The woman on the other end of the line sounded so different from the Rebecca I knew. Gone was the sharp, condescending tone. In its place was something raw and vulnerable. I've been going to therapy, she continued. It took a long time, but I finally started to see myself clearly. The way I treated you, the way I treated everyone, it was awful. I was so jealous of you, Amelia. You were so confident, so sure of yourself. You had David, you had your career, you had everything I wanted, and instead of being happy for you, I tried to tear you down. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. Rebecca, I never wanted to compete with you. I just wanted us to be family. I know, she said, and I couldn't see that because I was too busy being bitter. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve that, but I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, deeply sorry. I was quiet for a long moment. Part of me wanted to hold on to my anger, to remind her of all the pain she'd caused. But another part of me, the part that had always wanted to believe that people could change, was ready to let go. Rebecca, I said finally, I forgive you. She let out a sob on the other end of the line. Thank you, Amelia. You don't know how much that means to me. I don't know if we can go back to how things were, I continued. It's going to take time to rebuild trust, but I'm willing to try, slowly, if that's something you want. I want that more than anything, she said. I'll do whatever it takes. I promise. Over the next year, Rebecca worked hard to repair the relationships she'd damaged. She went to therapy regularly, attended family events with a new humility, and made a genuine effort to be kind. She started volunteering at a local shelter, finding purpose in helping others. Slowly, she began to rebuild her life. Peter and the kids started spending more time with her. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks along the way, but Rebecca kept trying, kept showing up, kept proving that she was serious about changing. Margaret called me one evening, her voice filled with emotion. I don't know how to thank you, Amelia. You gave her a chance when no one else would. She's finally the daughter I always knew she could be. I smiled. She did the work, Margaret. I just gave her the opportunity. At my next birthday dinner, Rebecca showed up with a small gift and a handmade card. The card was simple, but the message inside brought tears to my eyes. Thank you for not giving up on me. I know I didn't deserve it, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your forgiveness. I hugged her, feeling a genuine warmth for the first time in years. We're family, Rebecca. That's what family does. David watched the scene with a smile on his face, his hand resting on my shoulder. Later that night, as we drove home, he turned to me. You know, most people would have walked away. You didn't. I'm so proud of you. It wasn't easy, I admitted, but I believe in second chances, and I believe that people can change. I believe in you, he said. You're the strongest person I know. I smiled and reached for his hand. It had been a long, difficult journey, but we'd made it through. Our marriage was stronger than ever. Our family was healing, and I'd finally found the peace I'd been searching for all along. Rebecca continued to grow and change. She eventually got a new job, one that suited her better and gave her a sense of fulfillment. She repaired her relationship with her children, becoming a more patient and loving mother. And she and I developed a genuine friendship, one built on mutual respect and understanding. It wasn't perfect, and we still had our disagreements, but they were small, manageable. The big battles were over. We'd found a way to coexist, to support each other, to be family. As I look back on everything that happened, I realized that the anniversary dinner wasn't just a celebration of my marriage. It was a turning point. It was the moment I finally stood up for myself. And in doing so, I set off a chain reaction that changed all of our lives. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is also the most important. Standing up to Rebecca wasn't easy. It cost me months of stress and anxiety, but it also gave me my freedom. It gave me my voice, and it gave Rebecca the wake-up call she desperately needed. I don't regret what I did. I don't even regret the years of struggle that led up to it, because they taught me something valuable. I am worth standing up for. My peace is worth protecting, and no matter how much someone tries to tear you down, you always have the power to rise.